We're going to be starting question period now. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Madam Speaker, I am rising today to commend the Toronto Police Service, and specifically Sergeant Jeff Zammit and the Major Crimes Unit at 14 Division. Yesterday, they raided an illegal cannabis store operating right across the street from 2 elementary schools and a community center in Spadina, Fort York. 6 adults were arrested for selling illegal cannabis and magic mushrooms. They were charged with possession of a Schedule III substance for the purpose of trafficking, possession for purpose of selling, and possession of the proceeds of crime. Madam Speaker, imagine right across the street from 2 elementary schools, an illegal store set up shop with dried cannabis, pre-rolled joints, oil, hash, including 48 kilos of edibles, and believe it or not, psilocybin in chocolate bar format. The raid sent a message to illegal cannabis stores sprouting up throughout Toronto. You will be found out, you will be closed down, and you will be arrested.
The Honourable Member for Nepean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people is an occasion to remember, to reflect, and to renew our commitment to the just cause of the Palestinian people. On this day in 1947, the United Nations adopted the resolution on the partition of Palestine, which is yet to be implemented. Millions of Palestinians have been deprived of their fundamental human rights. Millions are refugees, and a third of registered Palestinian refugees lives in camp and need humanitarian assistance. I call on Canada to stand up to its reputation as the defender of human rights and immediately take steps to implement its policies. I also call Canada to join 138 other countries and recognize the sovereign state of Palestine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, last week many Canadians were saddened by the unexpected passing of Leon Fontaine, pastor of Springs Church with campuses in Winnipeg and Calgary. He was also CEO of the Miracle Channel, Springs Christian Academy, and Springs College. Leon's motto of love, accept, forgive is what grew Springs to be among the largest churches in Canada. His faith inspired the good he did in his community and around the globe. Leon's passion was for folks to join God's family and accept Jesus as their Savior and to live a miraculous, Spirit-led life. He had a heart for Winnipeg, a heart for Calgary, and a heart for Canada. Every service, Leon would open by praying for our leaders, business, medical, and political, that God would raise up great leaders who have a heart for people and a heart to serve people. If Leon could have addressed this Parliament today, this is what his message would be. When it comes to matters of faith, we don't all have to agree, but we need the freedom to agree. Leaders that would keep Canada the greatest and freest country in the world. We join Sally, their 5 children, and their families, and celebrate together with them a life well lived. Till we meet again.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize the achievements of the most decorated Canadian gymnast 2019 Pan Am Games and 3-time Olympian, Ms. Ellie Black, a Haligonian who has put Canadian athletics on the map and inspired future female athletes. At her 7th World Championships in Liverpool, Ellie anchored her team of rookies to a historic bronze medal and earned herself a silver medal in the balance beam. Despite her numerous international accolades as a 2-time Pan Am Games champion, Commonwealth Games champion, a World Championship silver medalist, she distinguishes herself by placing team results first, earning landmark successes for Team Canada. Mr. Speaker, over 90% of girls decreased or stopped playing sports during the pandemic, and 1 in 4 are not committed to returning to their sport. Ellie reminds us that we must celebrate the successes of our female athletes and encourage them as we do men and boys. Let us all work to make sport safer for girls and ensure they feel proud and supported in pursuing their athletic endeavors. Congratulations, Ellie, you make us proud. Thank you.
L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. I would like to commend the determination of thousands of workers of Avios who have been seeking justice from Air Canada for 10 years. They had to take on a company that had decided to trample on their rights and break the law by dismissing them illegally. They had to deal with a federal government that was completely insensitive to this injustice. The Bloc Québécois was thrilled to learn that the Quebec Superior Court found in favor of the workers and ordered Air Canada to compensate them for years of financial stress and anguish. I would particularly like to congratulate Jean Poirier, former Avios employee, who, along with others, led the charge and led this long battle with conviction and tenacity. In solidarity with the workers and their families who are still dealing with the fallout from this saga, we call on Air Canada not to appeal this ruling and to finally do the right thing. The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Canada held last week the 4th edition of the Canada-Italy Business Forum on AI and cybersecurity, bringing together experts to discuss problems and solutions. Protection of critical infrastructure such as energy, transportation, aerospace, defense, the manufacturing and financial sectors, and the healthcare system is among the major challenges of the 21st century and depends on cybersecurity. Forums of this type are an excellent initiative to have dialogue on innovative solutions and accelerate the response capacity with regard to this emerging threat. It is motivated by new geopolitical demands. Congratulations for this intergovernmental cooperation among researchers, scientists, and private business to deal with this threat.
Mr. Speaker, the pensions of approximately 125,000 UK expats currently living in Canada are still frozen. These pensions are frozen because the UK government and Canada do not have a reciprocal social security agreement. As a result, it punishes British pensioners living in Canada like 83-year-old Peter Sanguinetti, who served in the Dorset Regiment and was stationed in the West Indies, but now has to work part-time as a school bus driver because his pension has been frozen at a mere £90 per week. Or 97-year-old Anne Puckridge, who moved to Calgary to live near her daughters, but because of this cruel and indefensible policy, Anne receives just £72 per week. Simply put, people who've worked all their lives in the United Kingdom and paid into the United Kingdom system deserve to be treated fairly. The UK government needs to get around the table, agree to the new reciprocal agreement, and end this injustice.
Well, member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, Dr. Nazar Lauder was a prominent Newfoundland and Labrador psychiatrist and mental health activist who passed away unexpectedly but peacefully on November 12th at the age of 80. St. John's and the entire province has lost a true friend and an advocate for vulnerable persons. Simply put, he was kind, decent, and caring for all. He fought against the stigma of mental illness long before it was openly talked about, and he was a remarkable trailblazer. Dr. Lauder practiced general and forensic psychiatry for nearly 50 years, served as the president of the Canadian Psychiatric Association, and was an associate professor at Memorial University School of Medicine. I am honored to have known Nazar and can personally speak to his passion and advocacy for the dignity and respect of all persons. I send my deepest condolences to his wife, Dr. Linda Ingpen, and their 3 sons, Justin, Michael, and Jonathan, and their families. He will be remembered fondly.
For Kitchener-Conestoga.
Last week was the start of commemorating 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The campaign strives to eliminate all types of gender-based violence through education and through action. Ending gender-based violence and intimate partner violence in our communities will take all of us. It does not occur in a vacuum, but rather in a society that condones and encourages it. Change is possible when we take collective responsibility. It takes courage for women to come forward, but it's not reasonable to expect survivors to be the only ones to lead the change. We need more male allies, so I ask men to stand up and help break the cycle, to question complicity within the systems of violence, silence being one form of complicity. Men must speak up when they hear oppressive language or comments. From amplifying the voices of survivors to supporting women's organizations, we can all act to empower survivors, reduce and prevent violence against women and girls, and protect women's rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, rural Canadians are at a breaking point under this Liberal government's carbon tax. Right. These are the Canadians who are lining up at food banks because grocery prices are too high. These are the Canadians who cannot afford to drive to the city because gas prices are too expensive. These are the Canadians who are wearing winter jackets inside because home heating has emptied their savings account. But this Liberal government doesn't care about these rural Canadians. When speaking about the carbon tax, this is the government's own members said, and I quote, there needs to be a bit of pain there. That's the point. Mr. Speaker, rural Canadians are out of money, and this Liberal government is out of touch. Only the Conservatives will fight for rural Canada and cancel the painful carbon tax.
Hear, hear, hear. The honourable member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, November 29th is recognized by the United Nations as the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. It was on this day in 1947 the UN adopted the Partition Resolution, calling for the establishment in Palestine of a Jewish state and an Arab state. One of the two states to be created under this resolution, only one has so far come into being. On this day, we express solidarity with the Palestinian people who still wait decades later for their rights to self-determination. We call on all governments, including Canada, to stand up and champion the inalienable right of the Palestinian people to have the same human rights that we hold dear to ourselves, and for a just and fair two-state solution to be negotiated. As chair of the Canada-Palestine Parliamentary Friendship Group, I will continue to be a voice for justice and human rights for the people of Palestine.
The honourable member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
This Liberal government says that inflation in Canada is not their fault. Blowing up people's mortgage payments is not their fault. High interest rates are not their fault. Can't afford gas, groceries, or home heating, not their fault either. But now, Mr. Speaker, we know the truth. The Governor of the Bank of Canada has confirmed that inflation in Canada increasingly reflects what's happening in Canada. Even former Bank Governor Mark Carney now says inflation is quite broad. Most of it is now domestically generated. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that the cost of government is driving up the cost of living. The more Liberals spend, the more things cost. Just last week, the Governor of the Bank of Canada admitted as much when he confirmed if government spending had been just half of what it was during the pandemic, we'd be seeing lower inflation today. He said inflation is costing each Canadian an extra $3,500 per year. This Prime Minister is out of touch and Canadians are out of money. Instead of creating more cash, it's time to create more of what cash buys. Thank you.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
How do you encourage someone when they're discouraged? Can hope be restored when everything feels broken? So many Canadians have given so much in the worst of these recent times. Our nurses and doctors put their lives on the line, sacrificed time with their families, championed as heroes by this government, until they revealed their personal medical choice. Farmers across Canada, the cutting-edge best in the world, burdened with Liberal high taxes and tariffs. Veterans promised that they and their families would be cared for, now informed by back employees that they can use MAID to end their lives. Canadian Armed Forces members serving for all of our freedoms until the Liberal election call when they were forced to retire. Our truckers became a voice of pride for millions of Canadians, though they were labelled fringe, racist, misogynist by this Prime Minister. There's a wonderful proverb that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Everything feels broken. Don't lose hope. We'll fix it.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil, La Petite Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm hearing Christmas music while I'm shopping, and my calendar is filling up with festive events, and I am not the only one. Holiday time is also the time of year when community organizations move into action to help the most underprivileged of our fellow citizens. Generosity, citizens who are engaged in funding campaigns. We have all of this in Argenteuil, La Petite Nation. On November 19th, thanks to the extraordinary generosity of La Chute residents in Argenteuil RCM, the 32nd Guignolé of La Chute raised over $29,000, a record. Congratulations to its honorary president, Municipal Councillor Hugo Lajoie, and to all the volunteers. Other Guignolés are going to be held in my riding, and I urge all residents to contribute just as generously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If I can have your attention, order. I just want to remind everyone that Standing Order 31s are in process, and I'm sure the honourable members want to be heard and let you know about what's going on. That's important to them. The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Doug Komodo spent almost 60 years dedicated to commercial salmon trolling and his family's livelihood on the west coast of Vancouver Island. He was a tireless advocate for the salmon trolling industry and for salmon enhancement. In 1985, Doug's industry was sacrificed in Canada's Pacific Salmon Treaty with the United States, which resulted in a 50% cut in the Chinook catch, for which the Government of Canada received $30 million in compensation. Doug Komodo passed away last year without receiving 1 cent of this compensation. He equated his treatment by the Canadian government in his fishing career with the way his own Japanese-Canadian family was treated in 1942. To this day, DFO has still not spent more than $10 million of the Pacific Salmon Treaty settlement, while Doug Komodo lost half of his income from 2008 to 2019 as a result. Doug Komodo was a proud Canadian who fought hard for the commercial salmon trolling industry and the compensation he and his fellow fishers were owed. Their treatment by the Canadian government has been a national disgrace. Doug is gone, but not forgotten, and his fight will not end until there is justice for the West Coast commercial salmon fishers.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, Quebec is a football city. I'm referring to the extraordinary victory of the Golden Red of Laval University because it won the 11th Vanier Cup. I should underline the performance of Kevin Mittal, who was the best university player in Canada and who received the HoC Crichton Trophy. Congratulations to head coach Glenn Constantin, who celebrated his 10th victory in the finals. But the Vanier Cup is not the only trophy won by the Quebec City region. All school levels were victorious. The Blizzard of the St. François Seminary won the Juvenile Division I Golden Bowl, and the Limoilou Titans won the College Division I Golden Bowl. Whatever some of my colleagues might think, Mr. Speaker, Quebec is where the best football is played. These successes are due to the teamwork on the part of the coaches, players, support staff, and, of course, the parents. So, Rouge et Or, Titans, and Blizzard, congratulations. We're so proud of you.
The honourable member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians cannot afford their homes. And a house is not simply 4 walls and a roof. A house is the single largest investment most Canadians will ever own. Even more importantly, a home is a place where people start their families, where they celebrate with families, and mark some of the most important events of their lives. The reality is, if you own a variable mortgage, or you've just renewed your mortgage, your interest rate payments have doubled. Mr. Speaker, we must get these inflationary policies under control. So I call upon the government to stop deficit spending, to get interest rates and inflation under control. However, these Liberals, they can't help themselves. They just want to spend, spend, spend. So the only way that Canadians will be able to retain their homes is for the Prime Minister to lose his taxpayer-funded house.
Hear, hear. Honourable member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you, Speaker. Housing is a human right. I'm proud of our government that is investing in building affordable and social housing in our communities. In fact, Speaker, these investments in building new homes is taking place now. Just last week, I was honored to announce funding for 240 new affordable homes in my community of Ottawa Centre, along with our Minister of Housing. This includes projects led by CCOC and Ottawa Community Housing, two of most important not-for-profit housing providers in our city. Another project from the John Howard Society will offer supporting housing for Indigenous women experiencing homelessness. And this is all in addition to previous investments by our government since 2015, Speaker, that add up to almost 2,000 new affordable homes and with over 11,000 retrofitted units just in my community of Ottawa Centre. Wow. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, housing is a human right.
Its work until every Canadian can find a safe and affordable home. We can end chronic homelessness in our country.
Before we go to question period, I just want to point out that yesterday things got a little noisy and heated, and I would have called out a certain member, and by the sounds of it, I've got to admit when I do make a mistake, I did call out the wrong member, so my apologies go out to the honourable member for Edmonton West for calling him out incorrectly. I want to ask all of you to not shout out or do what I perceived him to do yesterday and help me not make mistakes again today. We'll see how that goes. Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Do our security services and our officials or our police officers, did they ever inform the Prime Minister of Beijing's interference in our elections? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As I've said many times, Mr. Speaker, our security and intelligence services and police take the importance of fighting against foreign interference very seriously, including Chinese interference. But I can assure the member and all Canadians that in the 2019 and 2021 elections, there was no foreign interference in a way that would have changed any of the results in any significant way. That's what the independent committee found. The Right Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Has used words to obscure the answer. He says there was not interference in a significant way that would have changed the outcome. Was there any interference of any kind?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As our intelligence services have highlighted many times in many different forums for Canadians, interference in Canadians' affairs by foreign powers is an ongoing thing, whether it's cyber interference, whether it's interference with communities here in Canada, whether it's attempts to influence the media. These are things that go on an ongoing basis, and things that our intelligence agencies and police agencies work very, very hard to counter. But Canadians can be reassured that the integrity of our elections was not compromised.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He still won't answer the question. The question was specifically about whether intelligence, law enforcement, or public servants briefed him or in any way informed him of any interference in any of our elections.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, back in 2019, we established a professional, a nonpartisan, independent group of top civil servants and intelligence officials to ensure that the integrity of our elections would not be compromised. They watched and reported in the 2019 election. They watched and reported for the 2021 election, and in both cases confirmed that the integrity of our elections was not compromised.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was not whether the election was compromised. The question was whether officials in intelligence, law enforcement, or the public service at any time informed the Prime Minister of allegations of any interference in our elections? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite brought in the element of allegations of interference. I can confirm, based on the news reports that a number of people have been remarking on for the past number of weeks, that I have never gotten any information from any of our security agencies or police officers or intelligence officials or public servants on any information on anyone receiving, as a federal candidate, receiving money from China, as the allegations highlighted.
Leader of the Opposition.
The question wasn't whether or not he heard allegations of money going to a candidate from China. Obviously, money doesn't travel on a big ship from the other side of the Pacific and then go to the shore and then be delivered to a candidate. That is obviously a denial of an absurdity. The question is whether or not the Prime Minister ever got information from the public service, the police, or intelligence bodies on any interference of any kind by Beijing in our elections.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I got a report back from our panel that was established, the experts established in the national security agencies, to report back on whether or not our elections were subject to foreign interference, and they confirmed that the elections were held in full integrity. The outcome was not impacted. That Canadians can have full confidence in the integrity of our elections in 2019 and 2021.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. My fear is that this is going to be even more confused in French. They said that there was no investigation by the RCMP, but now they're investigating. And I hope there's no one here that benefited from illegal funding, but if the reports suggest that there are up to 11 of them. Is this about protecting democracy? If so, the Prime Minister should reveal which ridings we're talking about. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we all heard the media reports which alleged that there was some funding by China of certain candidates, federal candidates, and I can confirm that all the experts and all the authorities from our intelligence services, among all of them, no one shared anything about interference whereby Canadians received money directly or indirectly from China. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister says what he doesn't know. He should tell us what he does know. He should. It's hardly reassuring if he doesn't know anything about these allegations. So this is a Prime Minister who stands up to the Chinese leader without taking the trouble of getting any allies on board with him before he stands up to him. So if China is to be isolated or pressured, shouldn't the Prime Minister seek some allies instead of just doing it solo and for grandstanding purposes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada does work with its allies and has been doing that for years to counter foreign influence, including Chinese interference in our cybersecurity systems, in our media, and in our population. So we're working very closely with our allies in the U.S. and in England and elsewhere to counter that influence, and we will keep working with our allies to promote our values and principles that we all hold so dearly. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Leaders are trying to privatize healthcare across the country. Doug Ford is setting up a for-pay virtual pediatric hospital, so parents have to pay for access to care. Daniel Smith is telling people that you have to fundraise to pay for your own operations. When will the Prime Minister get serious and stop the privatization going on across our country so people can get the care they need without having to pay for it?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, it's interesting because some days from the opposition we get, why aren't you sending money to the premiers to solve the healthcare problems? And other days we get like this one, be careful, don't send money to the premiers because they're trying to privatize healthcare. Mr. Speaker, regardless of what the opposition says, we're going to continue to do the work of making sure Canadians get reliable results and outcomes from their healthcare systems across the country, which means standing up for the Canada Healthcare Act, but also ensuring that any work we do with the provinces delivers concretely in line with the Canada Health Act.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
And that means stopping the privatization that's happening across the country. That's the question. Le système de santé croule à travers.
The healthcare system is crumbling all over Canada, including in Quebec. In Montreal, the Children's Hospital, the capacity is at 175%. That means they can no longer provide the care that's needed. Our children deserve better. When will the Prime Minister take action to save our healthcare system in Quebec and all across the country? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we were there with billions and billions of dollars, $72 billion in additional funding over the pandemic years to help the provinces deliver health care. And we will continue to be there with billions in support to help the healthcare system. But we need to ensure that that is tied to improvements, to better service, to better access for Quebec and Canadian families, better access to health care. That's why we're working with the provinces to deliver real results for children, families, and everyone.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister some very specific questions today about whether he was informed of allegations that Beijing interfered in any of our elections, and he refused to answer. So I will give him a sixth try. The question is not whether he knows of a candidate that received money. It's not whether there's a committee somewhere that said that the election turned out as it should. The question is if at any time, prior to the recent media reports, he was informed by his officials of interference by Beijing in our elections. Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Very encouraged by my Conservative colleagues who can also be assured that Canadians know that the elections in 2019 and 2021 were free and fair. And why do we know that? Because we had two independent panels who looked at allegations of foreign interference and confirmed as much. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, we are putting in place the tools that are necessary to protect all of our democratic institutions so that Canadians can have their voices reflected and heard in this chamber. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The RCMP wrote a letter to a parliamentary committee confirming that it is investigating foreign interference, and it said in particular that interference includes in democratic processes. Democratic processes. The Constitution defines democratic rights as voting, which of course is elections. The RCMP put that in writing. CSIS officials testified that there is foreign interference that includes in elections and ridings. Would CSIS and the RCMP have made these comments publicly without informing the Prime Minister first?
The Honourable Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has said very clearly, and my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, has repeated, our government put in place an independent process of experts chaired by the Clerk of the Privy Council, something the previous Conservative government hadn't thought important enough to do. And Mr. Speaker, that group of experts, chaired by the Clerk of the Privy Council, including the heads of our security and intelligence agencies, were given the important responsibility of ensuring that Canadian elections were free and democratic. And the good news, Mr. Speaker, I know it won't impress the Leader of the Opposition, the good news is they confirmed that both elections were exactly that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, that was exactly not the question. The question was not whether a committee confirmed the validity of the overall election result. The question was not whether or not the Prime Minister is aware of an individual candidate getting money from another country. The question was whether he was briefed by police, intelligence, or public servants on any interference by Beijing in any of our elections. Once again, the Prime Minister would please stand up and speak for himself, yes or no.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
I appreciate my honourable colleague's concern, and that is why we had two independent panels look at, with great forensic detail, allegations of foreign interference. Now, this review was carried out by nonpartisan, professional public servants so that we could all be sure that our elections were free and fair, and that is precisely what they confirmed. And now our government continues to be vigilant against all forms of foreign interference by giving law enforcement and national security partners the tools that they need to do so. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the Prime Minister has the tools that he needs to stand up and answer the question. He would know if his officials, if the police or the intelligence bodies briefed him on any foreign interference in elections. That's the specific question that I have now asked 7 times. At first, the Prime Minister refused to give a proper answer, and now he's refusing to even take to his feet and face the question. So one last time, was he ever briefed on interference by foreign actors in our elections, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we obviously share the concern of all members of this House about the importance of protecting Canadian democracy from any foreign interference. And we know that authoritarian regimes around the world have attacked other Western democracies for many reasons and for many years. That's why we thought, Mr. Speaker, it was important to take all the steps necessary to protect our democratic institutions. And as the Leader of the Opposition will know, we also set up the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, something that the previous Conservative government didn't do, and they have access to that confidential information.
L'honorable député de Chicoutimi.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi, the Fjord. Mr. Speaker, as you know, the holiday season is fast approaching, but Canadians aren't really in the mood for festivities. Inflation is strangling families. Food banks are overwhelmed with requests, and the face of the typical user is changing. People who used to donate food are now coming to get some. Even people with good jobs are coming for food. Families' wish list for 2023 is short. Can the Liberals guarantee that they will not increase taxes? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to begin my answers today with some good news for Canadian families. This week, on Thursday, December 1st, Canadians can begin to apply for the Canadian dental benefit. That means that parents of children under 12 will be able to apply for $650 for visits to the dentist. This is good news for Canadians, and I hope everyone will take advantage of it. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi. I agree to having children cared for, but before they get their teeth fixed, maybe they need something to chew on, because 30% of food bank users are kids. They're hungry. They're going to school on empty stomachs, and they need to be able to eat, drink, and have a roof over their head and have access to drugs when they're sick. These are the basic needs. Can this government guarantee that they will not increase taxes? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit surprised by the response, because I would have expected, well, I know that he voted against dental care for Canadian families. And it's important to be upright with Canadians and forthcoming and tell them who voted in favor of dental care for kids and who was it who voted against it. So I just want to take this opportunity to point out that this good program, which begins on Thursday, is a program the Conservatives voted against. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, this government wanted to add China to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They wanted a free trade deal with China. They seem to be ignoring the advice of their own security and intelligence services. How credible is this, Prime Minister, if his policy toward China, which could always start up again, a government that hides facts from its own people? Could we at least know, Mr. Speaker, of the 11 ridings in question, did any of them get any funding, and were any of them elected? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. As the government has already said, we share concerns about threats of foreign interference, and that's precisely why we created 2 independent panels. Both panels found that the results of the federal elections in 2019 and 2021 were free and fair. We will continue to invest to provide the authorities with all the tools they need to protect Canadian interests. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, a study by the AQDR and the Observatoire Québécois sur les inégalités shows that 1 in 2 seniors is in a precarious situation. And they're not just seniors 75 and over. These figures don't even take into account the record inflation that's currently affecting the cost of groceries and housing. Inflation, unlike this government, does not discriminate against seniors based on age. The study shows that half of seniors do not have a sustainable income. What more is it going to take for this government to increase the OAS for all seniors? The Honourable Minister.
Challenges that seniors are facing, and our government has been there for them. Mr. Speaker, we're delivering for them by doubling the GST credit. That is going to help 11 million people. That's why we're providing dental and rental support. Mr. Speaker, this summer we permanently increased the old age security for seniors age 75 and over. That's $800 more for a full pensioners, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that's why we increased the guaranteed income supplement. Mr. Speaker, that is helping over 900,000 seniors. That has lifted 45 seniors out of poverty. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to deliver for seniors. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, that's not what I'm talking about. They gave a $500 vote-getting check to everyone over 75, but not a penny more for those 65 to 74. They raised the pension for 75 plus by 10%, but not a penny more for 65 to 74-year-olds. That's the discrimination I'm talking about. It has to stop. Half of all seniors are in a precarious situation, and the government knows this. They could increase the pensions of all seniors starting at 65 by $110 a month, as we have been suggesting, but they choose to do nothing. Why? The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
There to support seniors. Mr. Speaker, this summer we've delivered on our promise to increase the old age security by 10% for those 75 and older, Mr. Speaker, strengthening support for Canadian seniors. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we increased the guaranteed income supplement that has helped over 900,000 single seniors, Mr. Speaker, that has lifted over 45,000 seniors out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, that is why we doubled the GST. That's going to help 11 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to make sure we support all Canadians, including seniors. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government isn't answering our very legitimate questions. We know the Prime Minister was briefed at least 3 times about foreign interference since the 2019 election. In the briefing, CSIS mentioned Beijing's foreign interference and also mentioned politicians and riding associations being targeted. Simple question. Was the Prime Minister told about Beijing targeting candidates in the 2019 or 2021 elections?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as my honourable colleague has heard on many occasions now, we had independent panels look at allegations of foreign interference. He can also be assured, and all members can, that we also have the RCMP and CSIS who are eyes wide open when it comes to potential threats of foreign interference. We're giving the community all the tools they need, the resources that they need so that we can protect all of our institutions, including elections, Mr. Speaker. That's something that all members should share as a common objective. Thank you.
For Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, CSIS also said in those briefings that the government's response to foreign interference be, quote, grounded in transparency and sunlight, end quote, so that foreign interference is, quote, exposed to the public, end quote. This government's response to our legitimate questions has been anything but. They've stonewalled us for weeks. Commissioner Lucky said yesterday that the RCMP has investigations into broad foreign interference, including interference in democratic processes. Simple question, do these investigations include the 2019 or 2021 elections?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is an experienced member of this House. He sat in a cabinet. He would know that ministers don't answer questions on details of specific police investigations in the House of Commons. What governments do, Mr. Speaker, what governments do is put in place the appropriate processes to ensure that our democratic institutions are protected from foreign interference, a concern that all members of this House share. Exactly. And as my colleagues have pointed out, Mr. Speaker, we took steps that previous Conservative governments didn't think they should take to put in place the appropriate mechanisms to ensure the integrity of our elections, and that's exactly what we did.
Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Yesterday, we learned from the RCMP and Commissioner that there are ongoing RCMP investigations into Beijing's election interference in 2019. The Leader of the Opposition has asked a very straightforward and specific question to the Prime Minister, one he has repeatedly refused to answer, and that is whether he was briefed about election interference by Beijing. Election interference. Canadians deserve transparency. So again, election interference by Beijing, was the Prime Minister briefed, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Colleague and all members in this chamber can be assured of the integrity of the 2019 and 2021 elections because we had independent panels who looked with great detail, great attention at documents, who interviewed witnesses and confirmed the result, Mr. Speaker. And more importantly, we will continue to give all of the tools that are necessary to our independent police community, to our independent national security community, so that they can protect all democratic institutions, so that Canadians can have their voices reflected in our governments. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Yesterday, at a request of a parliamentary committee looking at foreign interference in our elections, the RCMP refused to provide documents in its possession because those documents could compromise undergoing investigations. CSIS was a little bit more open. We have a document, a top-secret document called Briefing for the Prime Minister on Foreign Interference. There are only two people who deny foreign interference, the Prime Minister and the Chinese spokesperson. Nobody believes either one of them. When will the Prime Minister tell the whole truth? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows very well that the government was very transparent. The colleague across the way is referring to documents that a committee of the House requested. Mr. Speaker, the good news is that there is also a committee of parliamentarians which is specifically tasked with looking at this kind of issue when it comes to intelligence and national security. And I invite my colleague to ensure, as we will, that this committee, which is appropriate, will be able to look at these documents and will have access to all necessary information.
Member for Churchill, Kiwatanuk-Aski.
Royal Bank is about to take over another bank. Loblaws announced profits are up 30%. Large corporations avoided paying $30 billion in taxes. With the Liberals' help, corporate Canada is raking it in, while workers, people on fixed incomes, Northerners, and Indigenous peoples are paying the price. But this government is missing in action. The Deputy Prime Minister refuses to bring in a windfall tax. Instead, her solution, cancel Disney+. Instead of catering to billionaires, Seniors, why won't the Liberals stand up for working people and make the ultra-rich pay their fair share?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely is committed to ensuring that everyone in Canada pays their fair share. And in fact, we have brought in a COVID windfall tax. It's called the COVID Recovery Dividend. It is levied at 15% on financial institutions and insurers. We have also brought in a permanent 1.5% tax on banks and insurers. And, Mr. Speaker, we've introduced a luxury tax of 10% on private planes, luxury cars, luxury boats. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Hamilton Centre.
Highest ever second quarter profits. Shareholders are getting richer at the expense of Canadian workers by outsourcing 11,000 of their jobs overseas, and it's grotesque. And Canadian workers are fed up. USW Local 1944 has reached a 97% strike mandate, and this government is giving TELUS millions of dollars in federal procurement contracts. Will this Liberal government stand up for workers by ending lucrative contracts with companies like TELUS, who use taxpayer dollars to ship our Canadian jobs overseas?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We're concerned that Canadians pay some of the highest prices in the world to stay connected, and that's why our government is taking action to make services more affordable and to hold the big national carriers accountable. And our plan is working, Mr. Speaker. In 2020, our government announced an historic program to reduce mid-range cell phone plans by 25%, and I'm happy to report that our government reached this ambitious target ahead of schedule. But we know more work remains to be done, and that's why we will continue to push for lower prices for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, we know how important EI sickness benefits are for Canadians who are impacted and have to be able to leave the workforce as a result of an injury or a sickness. That is exactly why our government in budget of 2021 extended the EI sickness benefit to be able to make sure that those Canadians that face an income gap between by the time their benefits expire and they're able to get back to work are protected. Can the Minister of Workforce Development, Employment and Disability Inclusion provide an update to this House on the work of that extension on how we're protecting Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member from Kings Hants for his tireless work on behalf of his constituents. We know many workers face a stressful income gap between when they exhaust their EI sickness benefits and when they're able to return to work. That's why I'm pleased to announce that as of December 18th, we are permanently extending EI and sickness benefits from 15 weeks to 26 weeks, benefiting approximately 169,000 Canadians each year. This extension to 26 weeks will give workers more time to recover from serious illness or injury before they rejoin the workforce.
Honourable Member for Medicine Hat, Carson Warner.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have made life easier for criminals in this country. After 7 years of their soft on crime approach, violent crime has increased 32%, gang homicide is up 92%, and the overall incidents of violent crime in 2021 are up 124,000 compared to 2015. For a government who claims to make evidence-based decisions, they appear to be willfully blind to the evidence. Will this government stop their soft on crime policies?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, for the first time in Canada's history, we've repealed mandatory minimum penalties, giving judges the flexibility to impose sentences that fit the crime. We've repealed the MMPs that contribute most to the over-incarceration of Indigenous, Black and racialized people. The adoption of C5 means prosecutors and police can dedicate more resources and time to fighting serious crimes. And I want to thank all those who supported us in getting this through, including members of the opposition as well as the senators in getting Bill C5 through Royalist Senate, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Medicine Hats and Corner.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaking of Bill C5, this government's misguided approach continues with it. C5 reduces the mandatory minimum sentences for numerous violent crimes, including crimes with firearms. Bill C-75, it makes it easier for criminals to get out on bail. And now, rather than going after the illegal guns used by criminals and street gangs, the Liberals are targeting law-abiding hunters, farmers, and sport shooters with Bill C-71, or C-21, sorry. When will this government stop their soft on crime approach and get serious about public safety.
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is, of course, entitled to his opinions, but he's not entitled to the facts. The fact is they cut $390 million from CBSA, further weakening our border. In addition to that, they're comfortable with attacking C5, the first real government to tackle the issue of the massive overrepresentation of Indigenous and Black Canadian people in our prison system. That is a scandal, and they shouldn't fight that. We are trying to fix the systemic discriminatory effects of mandatory minimum sentences that have not reduced, that have not improved community safety, but have led to a massive increase in overrepresentation of disadvantaged groups, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, violent crime has risen 32% since the Liberals formed government in 2015. This is a fact across all of Canada, and including in my riding, where I'm reading local headlines titled, "Arrested Again for Participation in a Criminal Organization, Failure to Comply with a Probation Order, 11 counts of knowledge of a possession of a firearm while prohibited, 2 counts of disobeying a court order, 2 counts of breach of a weapons prohibition." Why are the Liberals removing mandatory minimums on repeat offenders, and when will they repeal their soft-on-crime policies?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, serious crimes will always have serious consequences. C5 is about moving past failed policies of the Conservatives who clogged our system and filled our prisons with low-risk first-time offenders. Time and resources that should be devoted to fighting serious crimes, Mr. Speaker. In fact, former Supreme Court Justice Moldover, whom no one can accuse of being soft on crime, recently stressed the need for a different approach to less serious offenses. In the past decade, we saw the impact of harsh, ineffective policies on Indigenous and racialized people or on those who suffer from addiction, Mr. Speaker. This is smart criminal justice policy.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Mr. Speaker, let's make sure talking points don't get in the road of the facts. 10 of the 12 mandatory minimums the Liberals are removing were introduced by previous Liberal governments, i.e. the Trudeau Senior and Chrétien governments. What did these previous Liberal governments get so wrong? As violent crime continues to increase in the last 7 years under this Liberal government, why are they so focused on helping criminals and repeat offenders by standing up for the victims? When will they repeal their soft-on-crime agenda?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition is defending those failed policies because he is defending himself. Him and the party opposite have been in the forefront of the Harper era implementing policies targeting Indigenous, Black, and marginalized people. Those policies did not protect our communities. In fact, even Conservatives in the U.S. are abandoning mandatory minimum penalties and recognizing that they do not work, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Sunday, during an interview on Radio-Canada discussing the Emergencies Act, the Minister of Public Safety said that the Act needs to be modernized and that it has some gaps. And he said candidly that his government knew that it hadn't reached the necessary thresholds to invoke the Act, but they did it anyway. Mr. Speaker, in a state of law, the end does not justify the means. Do the Liberals realize and accept the precedent that they've created, which would now authorize any government to suspend individual liberties just because they want to? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I respect my colleague across the way, but the number of times that he repeats something which is not true does not make it true. Mr. Speaker, nothing that our government has done suspended Canadians' individual liberties. We took an important decision to protect the Canadian economy, the safety of Canadians. We were transparent every step of the way, including before the inquiry last week, and we are looking forward to seeing Justice Rollo's report, which will shed light on these decisions. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, it's exactly this precedent that the father of the Emergencies Act, former Minister Perrin Beatty, was afraid of. At the inquiry, he said that he was afraid that once the Act was used once, the temptation would exist to use it for other crises. he consciously inserted in the Act specific criteria which need to be respected to prevent arbitrary use or abuse of the Act, as was the case with the previous War Measures Act. The Liberals ignored that criteria when they invoked the Act. Can the Minister please tell us what's preventing any future government from arbitrarily using the Act to suspend individual liberties? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows very well that all of the criteria were respected. We respected the rights of all Canadians in this process, and we also felt, Mr. Speaker, that it was important with the criteria that we've discussed with the Rouleau Commission, is to ask for opinions and suggestions about the possibility of modernizing the Emergencies Act, to listen to experts, and that's why we are looking forward to seeing the recommendations from the Commission.
The Honourable Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa.
Mr. Speaker, first the Liberals promised not to raise the carbon tax, and then they tripled the tax. Then they said Canadians would get more money back but when they paid the carbon tax. But then that was proven false. And then the Liberals promised the carbon tax would lower emissions, but emissions went up. When will this Liberal government stop misleading Canadians and cancel the failed carbon tax?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said in the House a number of times, affordability is extremely important to all members of this House. This government has taken very significant actions to address that. But I would also say that 8 out of 10 Canadian families actually get more money back from the carbon tax, from the price on pollution, than they actually pay. And in terms of misleading the House, I would actually ask the honourable member who asked the question what he campaigned on in the last campaign. It included putting a price on pollution. Not sure exactly how he explains that to his constituents. Misleading. Yes, very much misleading.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have no compassion for workers who are having a hard time making ends meet. And they're making the situation for small and medium-sized businesses even more difficult in January with the increase in taxes. And what's worst, these Liberal policies are hurting businesses in Beauce who hire foreign workers, who spend thousands of dollars to recruit them, with no assurance that they'll be able to keep them for the length of their contract. What is the government waiting for to help our small and medium-sized businesses by fixing this problem? And what are they waiting for to abandon their tax increases? The Honourable Minister.
Thank the Honourable Member for that question. I would say on this side of the House, every day we think about what we can do to help Canadians and to help those small businesses. We have cut taxes for small businesses throughout the pandemic. We have helped them keep their staff on staff. We saw so many businesses pivot to being e-commerce friendly so that they can help their customers So on this side of the House, every day it is about helping small businesses, and we'll keep doing that.
Well, member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, it's only 1 month. 1.5 million individuals use the food bank. The fact is that a lot of seniors now depend on the food bank for survival. Unfortunately, due to this Liberal government's careless spending practices, the life of people who founded this country is no longer affordable for our seniors who raised us, fed us, and cared for us. Will this Liberal government show compassion and stop the tripling of the carbon tax on food, gas, and home heating? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
The Honourable Member mentioned the word facts, so let's look at some facts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fact is when the Conservative Party was in power, their plan for seniors was to raise their age of retirement to 67. Mr. Speaker, the fact is the first thing we did on this side was to reverse that back to 65, Mr. Speaker. The fact is the party opposite has opposed every single measure that our government has put forward to support seniors, Mr. Speaker, including the increase to the guaranteed income supplement, including the increase to the old age security by 10%, including our enhancements to the CPP, Mr. Speaker. We won't take any lesson from the party opposite on seniors. We're going to continue to deliver for them. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, November 25th marked the beginning of 16 days of activism to end gender-based violence. This year's theme, it's not just. reminds us of both the injustice of gender-based violence and how often society dismisses or minimizes behaviors and beliefs that contribute to its pervasiveness. Can the Minister of Women and Gender Equality and Youth share what our government is doing to address the injustices and provide support to those experiencing gender-based violence?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much to the member. To anyone experiencing gender-based violence, we see you and we hear you. We know that crisis lines are being used more than ever across this country, and we've responded, Mr. Speaker. We've entered into agreements to fund crisis lines with Nova Scotia, the Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. We are committed to expanding those services in the coming days. I have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, I am honored to continue to do this work in every province, in every territory, to know that if you need help, there is someone to listen on the other end.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, this Liberal government has showed us that they're always in retard and working on reaction. They have no vision. No other country has seen the Tylenol and Advil shortage for kids like we've seen in Canada. And as parents, to save our kids, what do? We go to the hospital. Well, Saint-Justin in Montreal is at 135% of its full capacity. Since April, they've had this problem. So my question is very simple. Why is this government always reacting? Why are they always behind? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we share all of the concerns of parents and grandparents and teachers when it comes to the health care situation for children across Canada. But talking about being behind, maybe my colleague hasn't been listening in recent weeks, but for 2 weeks now, we've announced an emergency importation of over 2 million units of medication for kids. And last week, we announced an additional 500,000 units that'll be coming in the coming weeks. And I'll be happy to keep my colleague up to date on those measures. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Well, unfortunately, the minister has never gone to the pharmacy in the last few days. Nothing's available, and since April, they've been aware of the problem. Now, let's talk about the economy, Mr. Speaker. We're going into a recession, and the Liberals are increasing taxes. They don't even have the heart to give a hand to Canadians who need some help. What does it need? Individual bankruptcies are up by 22%. 1 business out of 6 is considering shutting down. The average balance on credit cards is at a record level of over $2,000, and the need for food banks is exploding. Will the Liberals listen to reason and stop increasing taxes? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague across the way that the best slogan for the Conservative Party has always been and will always be chop, 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 Mr. Speaker. They are the ones who don't accept any of the programs that we have put in place, who have cut. They don't agree with the Canada Child Benefit. They don't agree with the Canada Worker Benefit. They don't agree with any of the help that we've given for seniors. We have no lessons to take from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
This Liberal government has created a mess. Everything they touch is broken. The Arrive scam app, huge passport backlogs. Nexus is at a standstill. The fact that 1.5 million Canadians used a food bank in a single month, and seniors are telling me that they're skipping meals. And they're not alone. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals. This is all thanks to the Liberals' inflationary spending. Mr. Speaker, this is completely unacceptable. When will this government stop making life hard for Canadians and give them back control of their lives?
Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, to the contrary, on this side of the House, we actually understand how hard life is for Canadians right now, which is why we have put forward significant benefits to help Canadians, whether that be the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Dental Benefit, the Canada Housing Benefit, Mr. Speaker, an increase to the Canada Workers Benefit. We are there for Canadians at every single stage of their life because we understand that these are difficult times right now. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for my colleagues opposite. The Conservatives have voted against Canadians, against supporting Canadians every single time. If they want to join us and help Canadians, they're welcome to do that. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada is working day to night
to ensure that Afghans and their family who help Canada's mission to help women and girls read and write, maintain peace, and building democracy in Afghanistan will have a safe haven here. We know that the Taliban is trying to reverse this progress and making it harder for those fleeing prosecution to escape the country. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship give us an update on how Canada is stepping up to provide safe passage to Afghans most in need of protection?
Good question. Good question.
Well, Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question and his continued advocacy to support some of the world's most vulnerable people. The circumstances in Afghanistan are absolutely heartbreaking, and that is why Canada made one of the most substantial commitments of any country in the world to welcome at least 40,000 Afghan refugees. Mr. Speaker, I am so thrilled to share with my colleague that Canada has now welcomed more than 25,000 Afghan refugees who are safe that have been given a second lease on life here in Canada. And Mr. Speaker, they are here wanting to make a difference. I have met women judges and parliamentarians. I have met members of the LGBTQ2+ community. I have met members who have served alongside the Canadian Armed Forces to help us in our time of need. It's our turn to help them, and that's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are already dealing with the high costs of food and utilities, and now they'll have to pay a whopping 39.5% fuel fee on Canada Post packages this holiday season. It's price gouging, and this government is approving it. It's already hard to be away from loved ones during the holidays, and the Prime Minister is making it worse by allowing a Crown corporation to gouge families. Will the Prime Minister stop piling costs onto families and cancel Canada Post's holiday surcharge?
The Honourable Minister.
As I'm sure the member opposite is aware, Canada Post Corporation operates at arm's length from the government. But we do have regular conversations with Canada Post in terms of their initiatives. We monitor this very closely. I'm in communication with that board, and I commit to the member to continue that type of conversation.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, last week 3 people in my riding died in a tragic float plane crash off the coast of Port Hardy. Travel by air and water are a reality in communities like mine, and that's why we need reliable information from the weather stations. Safety is at risk when they are not working. The owner of the plane showed me his letters to Transport Canada, desperately requesting that weather stations be fixed. Some not working for months and even years. Wow. What is the Minister of Transport doing to ensure those weather stations are properly maintained and working?
Here, here. The Honourable Minister of Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for her important question. Safety in the aviation sector is our #1 priority. Myself and our government are working with Transport Canada, with our stakeholders, with all airline operators to make sure that we maintain the highest level of safety in Canada and around the world. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm willing to work with my colleague and other members of the House to ensure that we maintain that highest level of standard of safety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. Nous avons un rappel au règlement.
Point of order. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during question period, I quoted a document from a briefing info session for the Prime Minister on foreign interference. I seek the consent and collaboration of the House to table one of the many documents shared with us by the CRS.
Tous ceux qui s'opposent.
All those opposed to what the member is proposing will please say nay.
On n'a pas l'unanimité.
We don't have unanimous consent.
If I can have your attention, I just want to say that during question period, everything went rather smoothly, and I just want to thank you all for being so kind to each other. It being 3:15, conformément à l'ordre adopté.
Pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motions at report stage of Bill C-29. Call in the members.
Call in the members. the question is on motion number 1. Monsieur Miller, appuyé par Monsieur.
Mr. Millender, seconded by Mr. Boissonnault, moved that Bill C-29 in Clause 10 be amended by deleting lines 11 to 13 on page 5.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Holland.
Mr. Holland.
Mr. Macaulay Cardigan.
Mr. Macaulay Cardigan.